If you remember the era of girls wearing Domo and Cookie Monster snapbacks, the height of the Vans Warped Tour, and those crudely drawn Red Bull commercials,
It's Red Bull!
Red Bull, a new drink of the gods?
Nah, it's a new cold drink on Earth.
you were most likely there for the energy drink craze of the 2000s. The 2000s were an arms race of caffeine, taurine, and sugar, and it birthed an entire culture behind it with a target on teens and college students. This was a decade where every gas station fridge looked more like a fighting game character select screen than an actual place to store beverages.
Select your heroes. Monster.
This was an era where energy drinks aimed not just to be consumed, but become a whole lifestyle. They were sold like performance enhancers for teenage and young adult burnout. Red Bull gave you wings, Monster made you unleash the beast, and Rockstar told you to live fast, party harder, and crash later. And others would follow, sometimes going a bit too far. And you can bet that this all worked. To a new market, these drinks felt and sometimes actually were dangerous. Heck, they all look dangerous to the virgin eye. And somewhere between all that sugar, caffeine, and adrenaline, a new cultural addiction was born. Energy drinks would explode in tandem with the rise of gamer and extreme culture, joining the Mountain Dew fuel aesthetic of the 2000s. This is the story of the rise, chaos, and fallout of the 2000s energy drink boom. And if you like these cultural lookbacks, feel free to like and subscribe for more like this in the future. To look at the culture of energy drinks in the 2000s, we have to go back to the 90s with the release of one of the most iconic brands in that spear's introduction to the US market. That brand is Red Bull. Red Bull would land on US soil in 1997, originally attempting to market itself as a club energy drink. This was done by placing the drink in clubs where it was said to simply be a European energy drink, giving it the illusion of being more high-end than it actually was. This guerrilla marketing tactic would further evolve with Red Bull doing what it still does now, sending out Red Bull girls and guys to random college campuses to give out free drinks. These strategies were done alongside a seeding program that saw Red Bull placed in bars and what were designated as cool shops. This made Red Bull blow up from strictly word of mouth, unlike other brands that were spending big budgets on exposure through typical advertisements. The company would even fool randoms by putting empty cans in clubs as if someone tore through them already. These tactics became Red Bull trademarks and would give it the image of being a cool drink. I mean, as a kid, when I wasn't allowed to drink it, the commercials around Red Bull made me think that it was definitely cool in a can.
Yes, mama, Red Bull. Red Bull vitalizes body and mind and gives me wings.
But by the early 2000s, Red Bull wouldn't be alone anymore. Monster, Rockstar, and Full Throttle would put their hats in the ring. But with the twist, that was an edgy identity focused on extreme sports, gaming, and music. Sort of an adoption of Red Bull's guerrilla precedent, turned up to the next level and aimed directly at its intended audience. In layman's terms, the drinks were peak bro-core energy. That was a peek at the culture that energy drinks became tied to. Jackass, Tony Hawk, Linkin Park, Bayformers, Halo LAN parties, Call of Duty lobbies, etc. They didn't discriminate, but they obviously became a huge part of the male identity in particular, and would be paired with it for years to come.
I would like to be as clever as a fox, strong as a bear, and I would like to fly like an eagle.
Then you need Red Bull energy drink. It vitalizes your body and your mind.
Red Bull gives you wings! Oh, Genie, thank you. Bye-bye.
Then who will grant my wishes?
Inside, Puffy Pants.
On the other side of the drinking spear, we'd see the simultaneous rise of what were advertised as healthier alternative energy drinks. Brands that would tap into early 2000s wellness and new age aesthetics like stylized animal logos, tribal designs, and bright colors like Sobe, which I have an entire video on that you can watch right here.
You got me.
These drinks would mix caffeine with vitamins, ginseng, guarana, and taurine for a natural high appeal that they use to set themselves apart, blurring the line between soft drink and supplement, letting companies market them as functional lifestyle drinks. This was done to take the spotlight from other types of market drinks, which these alternative drinks would accomplish for a time. Ironically, the popularization of energy drinks would see these brands taste their own vitamins and minerals, as suddenly the trend of the 2000s went from wellness and cool factor to energy and cool factor, a more mature factor that was more PS3 and Xbox 360 flavored than PS1 and N64 flavored, if that makes any sense. By the mid-2000s, Monster Energy would solidify itself as a cultural icon. It wasn't just a drink anymore, but a lifestyle brand. You know, I never knew that the logo was supposed to be like clawed out by a monster until I made this video. Monster would plaster itself everywhere, sponsoring extreme sports like motocross, gaming events in the esports space like Call of Duty League and Halo Championship Series, rock and punk music events like the Vans Warped Tour, and a lot more. Monster Energy was basically the drink that teens who couldn't drink alcohol drank to be cool, which in turn kinda made it not cool to others like vape pens. Of course, Monster continued the tried and true trend of 2000s sex selling, with the Monster Girls promos as well. A group of attractive women that show up to events to advertise and sometimes give out Monster. This would all be the case since 2006, with many trying to ape Monster's energy like Mountain Dew's Amp or Coca-Cola's Vault, which was personally my favorite energy drink of choice back then. Hey, please bring this back for the one time. With all these releases, it's obvious that by the mid-2000s, the energy drink wars were in full swing. Every brand was in a race to outdo the next with louder cans, more sponsorships, and buzzwords and adverts. Like, just look at Full Throttle and Nas and tell me that wasn't Untamed energy in a can. While these all brought in issues such as worries about youth and adults alike being addicted to caffeine and the drinks themselves, the real chaos would be unveiled when 3 other challengers joined the fray. And those drinks were Sparks, Four Loko, and Juice. These drinks weren't just energy drinks, they were whole experiments. Someone seriously had the bright idea to mix alcohol into the energy drink equation and expected things to go smoothly. The drinks became a hit and I guess were working as intended, making their presence known on college campuses and frat basements and plenty of house parties of the era. Four Loko especially became legendary, with headlines calling it liquid cocaine and causing the Four Loko effect. It was blamed for blackouts, hospitalizations, and even deaths. In fact, it wasn't uncommon to hear about someone drinking 2 cans and blacking out, leading the media to also call it blackout in a can. It held the alcohol equivalents of 3 beers packaged in colorful cans with fruity flavors, which would lead to it being even more controversial and getting into more trouble.
To get the same amount of energy in just one Four Loko, you'd have to drink a Red Bull and a cup of coffee.
That's a lot of energy.
And these 4 beers.
I thought this was an energy drink.
So did the FDA, suckers.
When someone consumes alcohol, it is an anesthesia that slows down the respiration, heart rate, reactions, and so on. Matt, Assistant Dean of Students for Alcohol and Drug Intervention, said in an interview. On the other hand, caffeine is a stimulant, which increases the heart and respiration. And if someone has had too much, it certainly makes him or her hypervigilant and fidgety. In November of 2010, the US Food and Drug Administration, or FDA, warned the manufacturers of these alcoholic energy drinks that the mix of caffeine in their malt alcohol was unsafe and a public health concern. The FDA would soon crack down on these alcoholic energy drinks. This would lead to most retailers ending the sale of the drink until a safer, updated formula was released.
Cans of Four Loko are flying off store shelves since the FDA deemed it unsafe.
It's a skyrocketing demand for a drink some call blackout in a can.
Four Loko would reformulate and lose its edge and clout for being a party drink, with others like it quietly disappearing or adapting like it. Stricter labels became enforced along with caffeine limitations and regulations on energy alcohol combos. By the time the smoke cleared from the Four Loko saga, energy drink culture kinda lost its luster, and the drink simply became a part of normal drink culture. Monster and Red Bull continued to have their claws in the multitude of extreme sponsorships, but a new breed of energy drinks would rise, focused on being sleek, fitness-oriented, and more algorithm approved. Drinks like Celsius, Alani Nu, and the Dollar Tree regular Prime Energy. These drinks, unlike their predecessors, weren't about guerrilla tactics or underground cultures. but being front and center in gyms, influencer sponsorships, and Instagram reels. No one who drinks these is trying to unleash the beast, but just wants to optimize their day. Like I said, energy drinks in the early 2000s didn't want to just be beverages, but they wanted to be statements. They were excessive in everything they did, and for that reason, they all became iconic, especially for Loco after that fiasco. It's funny that the energy drink craze basically only lasted that sole decade, but it feels like so much longer because how much we got Red Bull and Monster logos shoved in our faces. While I didn't drink them as much as others did, I still get fond memories of late nights on Halo and staying at friends' houses just by looking at them. What are your thoughts on the early 2000s energy drink era? Do you have any memories of them? Let me know below, and once again, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed, please like and subscribe, and as always, have a good one.